The Eternal Dominion, the end of all resistance, Supreme Commander Vexathan stood at the center of his command vessel, the Worldbreaker, watching another civilization surrender. The massive holographic display showed the latest conquered world, Zerion Prime, its purple skies now filled with Zephyrian warships. The planet's inhabitants, a species of crystalline beings who had ruled their sector for 3,000 years, knelt in submission before his ground forces. "Another world falls to the Eternal Dominion," Vexathan announced to his bridge crew. His voice carried the weight of 50,000 years of unbroken conquest, standing nearly 12 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that shifted color-based on his emotions. He was an imposing figure even among his own kind. Battle scars covered his armored hide, each one a trophy from a war won, a species conquered. The Zephyrians had ruled the galaxy since before most civilizations had learned to make fire. They were apex predators in every sense, biologically superior, technologically advanced, and psychologically conditioned for war. Their empire stretched across 47 sectors, encompassing thousands of worlds and hundreds of conquered species. Nothing in the known universe had ever successfully resisted them for more than a few cycles. Navigator Kixara approached the command platform, her movements graceful despite her 7-foot frame. Unlike the battle-scarred commander, she bore the markings of the scout caste, lean, quick, with enlarged sensory organs that could detect anomalies across vast distances of space. "Commander, the deep-range scouts have returned from the outer spiral. They report something unusual." Vexathan's skin darkened slightly, a sign of mild interest. In 50 centuries of conquest, very little qualified as unusual anymore. "Show me." The holographic display shifted, revealing a small, unremarkable star system at the edge of charted space. A yellow star, 8 planets, nothing that would normally warrant attention. But as Kixara manipulated the controls, the display focused on the 3rd planet, a blue and green world wrapped in swirling white clouds. "The locals call it Earth," Kixara reported. "Single dominant species, technologically primitive. They've only achieved basic spaceflight within the last 100 cycles. Their weapons are crude, their defenses minimal." Vexathan studied the planet with growing disinterest. "Why waste my time with such primitives? Assign a patrol squadron, standard subjugation protocols." "That's just it, Commander." Kixara's voice carried a note of uncertainty that made several bridge officers turn to look. "The initial scan readings are inconsistent." The display zoomed in, showing images captured by the scout drones. Cities sprawled across continents, but unlike the orderly structures of most civilizations, these settlements seemed chaotic, almost random in their growth. Massive structures reached toward the sky, while below them, older buildings clustered in seemingly inefficient patterns. "Their development patterns make no sense," Kixara continued. "They've colonized environments that should be uninhabitable, frozen wastelands, scorching deserts, underwater cities. Their population centers exist in regions that would kill most species we've encountered." Vexathan's lower arms crossed over his chest while his upper pair manipulated the display controls. "Adaptability means nothing without power. What of their military capabilities?" "Fragmented," Kixara replied immediately. "Hundreds of separate political entities constantly engaged in warfare among themselves. Their weapons technology is primitive, chemical explosives, kinetic projectiles, basics, fusion weapons. They have no unified command structure, no coherent defense strategy. Then why are we discussing them?" Vexathan's skin began to redden with impatience. Kixara hesitated, then activated another section of the display. "Because of this, the images that appeared showed human conflicts throughout their history, battles where smaller forces had held against overwhelming odds, sieges that lasted for years when they should have ended in days, cities that fought to the last inhabitant rather than surrender, wars that continued even after crushing defeats. They don't surrender, Jixara said quietly. Not when they should. Not when any rational species would. Our scouts observed 7 active conflicts during their surveillance period. In each case, the weaker force fought far beyond the point of logical defeat. Vexathan studied the images with growing irritation. Every species fought when they thought they could win. Most fought even when victory was uncertain. But all species surrendered when faced with impossible odds. It was simple mathematics. Survival of the gene pool required knowing when to yield. Stubborn primitives, he dismissed. They'll learn quickly enough when faced with true power. Perhaps, Jixara agreed, though doubt colored her tone. But there's something else. Their technological advancement rate is unprecedented. In just the last 500 cycles, they've progressed from pre-industrial civilization to spaceflight. No other species we've encountered has developed so rapidly. Vexthan turned away from the display. Rapid development or not, primitives were primitives. Prepare a subjugation fleet. I'll lead this conquest personally. It's been too long since I've seen active combat. How many ships should be sufficient for this? Earth? Our analysis suggests 50 vessels should be more than adequate, replied his tactical officer, War Second Nethtal. Their orbital defenses are minimal. Their fleet consists of perhaps 200 primitive vessels. We could accomplish subjugation with 1/10 of that force. Make it 100 ships, Vexthan decided. If these humans are as stubborn as Navigator Jixara suggests, overwhelming force will end their resistance quickly. I have no patience for drawn-out conflicts with primitives. First contact, 3 weeks later, the Zephyrian subjugation fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force watched the massive alien ships materialize on her tactical display, feeling ice form in her stomach. She had commanded humanity's space forces for 12 years, had prepared for this moment since first contact protocols were established, but nothing could have prepared her for the sheer scale of what she was seeing. "Count?" she asked her tactical officer, though she could already see the numbers climbing on her display. 100 vessels confirmed, Admiral. The largest is... Lieutenant Commander Park paused, rechecking his readings. "Ma'am, the flagship is 30 kilometers long. It's larger than some of our asteroid colonies." Chen studied the display from the bridge of her flagship, the UES Defiant. Humanity's entire defensive fleet consisted of 47 combat vessels, most of them converted cargo haulers and mining ships fitted with whatever weapons Earth's industries could produce. Against 100 purpose-built warships, they didn't stand a chance in conventional combat. "Ma'am," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission on all frequencies." "Put it through." Supreme Commander Vexthan's image filled the main screen, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. When he spoke, his words were translated by computer systems that had analyzed human languages during the scout phase. "Primitive inhabitants of Earth, I am Supreme Commander Vexthan of the Eternal Dominion. Your world now belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender your military forces immediately and prepare for processing. Those suitable for labor will be relocated to work worlds. The rest will be eliminated to make room for proper development. Of your planet's resources, you have one of your local days to comply." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Chen looked around at her officers, men and women who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity, now facing the end of their species' independence. "Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Park said quietly, "our analysis of their ships suggests their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their smallest vessels outgun our largest by a factor of 10. Chen nodded slowly. She had read the projections, understood the mathematics of the situation. In a straight fight, humanity would be wiped. Out in hours. But humans had never been ones to fight fair when survival was at stake. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," she ordered. Initiate Protocol Omega. All civilian vessels are to begin evacuation procedures. Military vessels will buy them time. Ma'am, her executive officer protested, Protocol Omega is a last resort contingency. Are we really going to— Commander, Chen cut him off, her voice hard as steel. They just announced their intention to commit genocide against our species. Protocol Omega is exactly what this situation calls for. She opened a channel to the alien fleet, knowing her next words would either save her species or damn them all. Supreme Commander Vexathan, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We've received your ultimatum and discussed your terms. She paused, meeting the alien's four-eyed gaze through the communication link. Our response is simple. If you want our world, come and take it. Chen cut the transmission and turned to her tactical officer. Signal all ships. Execute Stalingrad Protocol. Make them pay for every inch of space. The price of arrogance. On the bridge of the World Breaker, Supreme Commander Vextan stared at the blank screen where the human admiral's image had been. In 50,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to his ultimatum with defiance. Shock, terror, desperate bargaining, these were the normal responses. Direct challenge was unprecedented. Commander, Warsecond Nethtal reported, the human fleet is moving to attack formation. They appear to be grouping for a direct assault. Vexathan's skin cycled through colors rapidly, confusion, anger, then settling on the deep red of combat. Readiness. Impossible. They must know they cannot win. Navigator Kixara studied her sensor readings with growing unease. Sir, their formation is unlike anything in our tactical databases. They're not arranging for battle lines or defensive screens. It looks almost like— Like what? Vexthan demanded. Like they intend to ram our ships, she said quietly. The idea was so absurd that several bridge officers made the Zephyrian equivalent of laughter. Ramming attacks were suicide tactics used only by the most desperate and primitive species, and only then as last resort measures. No military force would open a battle with such tactics. Let them come, Vexthan ordered. All ships, defensive. Formation Beta. We'll end this foolishness quickly. What happened next would be analyzed in Zephyrian military academies for generations to come. The human fleet split into 3 groups, each taking a different vector toward the Zephyrian formation. The largest group, led by Admiral Chen's flagship, accelerated directly toward the center of the alien line. The other 2 groups curved wide, attempting to flank the massive enemy fleet. Standard primitive tactics, Warsecond Nethtal commented. Divide forces against superior enemy, they'll be destroyed piecemeal. But as the human ships closed distance, they began behaving in ways that defied all military logic. Individual vessels broke from formation, accelerating beyond safe limits, toward specific Zephyrian targets. Their engines glowed white-hot as human engineers pushed their ships beyond design specifications. Sir, a sensor operator reported with growing alarm, multiple human vessels are showing critical reactor signatures. They're deliberately overloading their power systems. Vexthan's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Evasive maneuvers. All ships. The first human ship, a converted mining vessel called the Prometheus, slammed into a Zephyrian destroyer at nearly 10% light speed. The explosion lit up space for hundreds of kilometers, taking out 2 more alien vessels caught in the blast radius. Before the Zephyrians could react, 3 more human ships performed similar suicide runs, each one targeting specific points in the alien formation. Impossible, Vexthan whispered, watching his tactical display update with casualty reports. In the first 5 minutes of combat, he had lost 7 ships to an enemy that should have been swept aside effortlessly, but the humans weren't finished. As the Zephyrian fleet tried to reorganize, the remaining human vessels pressed their attack with a ferocity that shocked the experienced alien commander. Ships with hull breaches continued fighting. Vessels that should have retreated for repairs instead closed distance for point-blank exchanges. Human captains transmitted final messages of defiance even as their ships broke apart around them. Captain Marcus Webb, commanding the frigate Yorktown, found himself facing 3 Zephyrian cruisers after his squadron had been scattered. His ship was outgunned, out-armored, and outmaneuvered. By every rational measure, he should have surrendered or retreated. Instead, he opened a channel to his crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, we knew this day might come when we signed up to defend Earth. Today, we show the galaxy what humans are made of. All hands, prepare for close engagement." The Yorktown accelerated toward the nearest Zephyrian cruiser, firing everything it had. When its main guns were destroyed, the crew switched to secondary weapons. When those were gone, they used mining charges and jury-rigged explosives. When the ship's hull was compromised and life support was failing, Captain Webb rammed his dying vessel into the alien ship's engine section, crippling it and creating an opening for other human vessels to exploit. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. The human fleet was being systematically destroyed, but each ship that died took Zephyrian vessels with it. What should have been a one-sided slaughter became a costly battle that shocked the alien commanders. "Status report," Vexthan demanded as the battle entered its 3rd hour. 18 of our ships destroyed, 12 more heavily damaged. War second. Nethtal reported, his voice hollow with disbelief. "The human fleet is effectively destroyed, but what? But they've inflicted casualties that no primitive species should be capable of. Our losses are higher than in our last 3 conquest campaigns combined." Vexthan stared at the tactical display showing the debris fields where proud Zephyrian warships had once been. 30 ships damaged or destroyed by primitives who should have surrendered at the first show of superior force. It was impossible. It was unprecedented. It was terrifying. For the first time in 50,000 years of conquest, Supreme Commander, Vexthan felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt, not about the ultimate outcome of the war, but about the price his empire would pay to win it. As he prepared to order the assault on Earth itself, one thought echoed in his mind. If this was how humans fought in space, what would they do to defend their home world? The answer would soon make the Zephyrian Empire understand what the word fear truly meant. The price of underestimation. The invasion begins. Supreme Commander Vexthan stood before the holographic war table aboard the Worldbreaker, his 4 eyes studying the blue-green planet below. Earth hung in space like a jewel, beautiful and seemingly peaceful. But after the costly space battle, Vexthan knew better than to underestimate what lay beneath those swirling clouds. "Ground assault preparation complete, Commander," War Leader Kethmore reported. Standing 8 feet tall with the thick armored hide typical of Zephyrian assault troops, Kethmore commanded the ground forces with brutal efficiency. His scarred face bore the marks of 100 conquered worlds. 2 million troops ready for deployment across 12 landing zones. Vexthan's skin flickered between red and orange, a sign of his conflicted emotions. The space battle had cost him 30 ships and thousands of elite crew members. Primitive humans had achieved what no species had done in 50 millennia. They had made the Zephyrian fleet bleed. "What do our intelligence reports tell us about their ground defenses?" Vexthan asked. Navigator Kiksara manipulated the display, showing detailed scans of Earth's surface. Fragmented defensive positions, no unified command structure. Their largest military installations are concentrated around major population centers. Estimated total ground forces, perhaps 50 million soldiers equipped with primitive kinetic and chemical weapons. 50 million! War Leader Kethmore snorted dismissively. "Against our 2 million elite warriors with superior weapons, armor, and training, the numbers mean nothing." But Vexthon remembered the space battle, remembered watching human ships deliberately sacrifice themselves for minimal tactical gains. These humans don't fight like rational beings, war leader. Expect the unexpected. Kethmore's mandibles clicked, the Zephyrian equivalent of a shrug. Courage without technology is useless, Commander. They'll break when they see true power. As if summoned by their conversation, a communication alert chimed. The main display activated, showing the face of a human woman in military uniform. General Lisa Rodriguez, according to the translation overlay, commanding officer of Earth's unified ground forces. "This is General Rodriguez. To the invading fleet," she began, her voice steady despite the impossible odds she faced. "We know you're coming. We know we can't stop you with conventional warfare, but we want you to understand something before you set foot on our world." She paused, and when she continued, her words carried a weight that made even the battle-hardened Zephyrians pay attention. Humans have been fighting for survival since we lived in caves. We've faced ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and each other. Every time we've endured, every time we've adapted, every time we've survived. You're about to learn why. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. "Primitive bravado," Kethmore finally declared, but his voice lacked conviction. "Perhaps," Vexthon replied. "Begin the landing. But war leader, expect heavy resistance." The landing doctor, James Park, stood in the command bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching the tactical displays with growing dread. Thousands of alien dropships were descending through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, each one carrying 50 of the galaxy's most feared warriors. "First landing zones are taking fire," reported Commander Alex Petrov from his position at the Air Defense Station. The young pilot had survived the space battle by the skin of his teeth, his fighter limping back to Earth with half its systems destroyed. "Our surface-to-air missiles are having limited effect." Dr. Park nodded grimly. As Earth's chief military scientist, he had spent the last 3 weeks since first contact working on ways to level the playing field. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had something else, the ability to think outside conventional parameters. "Activate Protocol Darwin," Park ordered. Across Earth's surface, hidden installations came online, not weapons in any traditional sense, but something far more insidious. Chemical dispensers released clouds of engineered viruses into the atmosphere, not lethal to humans, thanks to pre-distributed vaccines, but potentially devastating to alien biology. Electromagnetic pulse generators powered up, ready to disrupt alien electronics. Most importantly, a network of underground tunnels and bunkers activated, turning every major city into a potential fortress. The first Zephyrian dropships landed in what had once been the American Midwest, choosing open farmland for easy deployment. War leader Kethmore himself led the primary assault force, confident that human resistance would crumble under the weight of superior firepower. What happened next shattered every assumption the Zephyrians had about primitive warfare. Instead of meeting the aliens in open battle, human forces simply disappeared. Farms that should have been defended were abandoned. Cities that should have been fortified were apparently empty. For the first 24 hours, the Zephyrian ground forces encountered almost no resistance at all. "Where are they?" Kethmore demanded, studying tactical reports from across the planet. His forces had secured landing zones, established supply lines, and begun advancing toward major population centers without firing a shot. 2 billion humans can't simply vanish. His answer came at dawn on the second day, when the humans revealed what they had actually been doing while the aliens thought they were hiding. The underground war commander Sarah Mitchell crawled through the maintenance tunnel beneath New York City, her team of 12 soldiers moving silently behind her. They had been underground for 36 hours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Above them, A Zephyrian supply convoy was preparing to move through the apparently abandoned city. "Remember," she whispered into her communications device, "we hit fast, we hit hard, and we disappear. The goal isn't to win a firefight, it's to make them afraid to leave their ships." Her team emerged from storm drains and subway entrances simultaneously, surrounding the alien convoy with perfectly coordinated timing. Improvised explosive devices hidden throughout the city's infrastructure detonated in sequence. Buildings collapsed across predetermined routes, trapping alien vehicles in kill zones where human soldiers could engage from concealed positions. The Zephyrian soldiers, despite their superior armor and weapons, found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see against tactics they didn't understand. When they returned fire, humans melted back into the urban landscape through passages that had been prepared over decades of city planning. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In London, Paris, Tokyo, and hundreds of smaller cities, human resistance fighters emerged from underground networks to strike at alien forces before vanishing again. The Zephyrians controlled the surface, but humans owned everything beneath it. "Impossible," war leader Kethmore snarled as casualty reports flooded in. "How did they prepare so extensively? Our intelligence showed no unified command structure, no coordinated defense planning." Dr. Park, monitoring the global resistance from his mountain bunker, allowed himself a grim smile. The aliens had made the classic mistake of underestimating human paranoia and preparation. For decades, every major city on Earth had maintained emergency protocols for natural disasters, terrorist attacks, and foreign invasion. Underground shelters, supply caches, communication networks, all of it had been repurposed into the most extensive resistance infrastructure in galactic history. But the real surprise was yet to come. The adaptation. By the end of the first week, war leader Kethmore realized he was fighting a war unlike any in Zephyrian history. His forces controlled vast swaths of territory, but they couldn't hold it. Every supply convoy was attacked, every outpost was sabotaged, every patrol that ventured into human population centers faced coordinated ambushes from enemies who seemed to know their every move. "They're intercepting our communications," his intelligence officer reported during the daily briefing. "Somehow, they've cracked our encryption protocols." Kethmore's mandibles clicked in frustration. Zephyrian communication systems were the most advanced in the galaxy, protected by quantum encryption that should have been unbreakable by primitive technology. What he didn't know was that Dr. James Park had made a breakthrough, not in breaking alien encryption, but in understanding alien psychology. Humans had been studying the Zephyrian communications for weeks, not trying to decrypt the messages, but analyzing the patterns of transmission timing, frequency shifts, and signal strength variations. It turned out that Zephyrian military protocols were so standardized after 50,000 years of conquest that human analysts could predict troop movements just from communication patterns. "We don't need to understand what they're saying," Park had explained to General Rodriguez. "We just need to understand what they're thinking." The breakthrough came when Commander Alex Petrov, now leading Earth's aerial resistance from captured alien aircraft, discovered something that changed everything. During a desperate raid on a Zephyrian supply depot, his team had captured several alien soldiers alive. "They're afraid," Petrov reported back to command, his voice filled with amazement. "These galaxy-conquering super soldiers are actually afraid of us." The captured Zephyrians, when questioned, revealed the truth that their commanders tried to hide. For 50,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had conquered through overwhelming force and intimidation. Species saw their fleets and surrendered immediately or fought briefly before accepting defeat. Never had they encountered an enemy that refused to acknowledge when they had lost. "They don't understand our concept of never give up," one captured soldier explained through a translation device. "In our language, there is no word for what you humans do. You fight when victory is impossible. You sacrifice lives for symbolic gains. You continue resistance even when your cause is hopeless. It defies all logic. Dr. Park realized they had stumbled upon the Zephyrians' greatest weakness, their inability to comprehend irrational behavior. An empire built on logical conquest couldn't adapt to an enemy that refused to be logical. The turning point, the moment that changed the war, came during the Battle of Geneva, where war leader Kethmore himself led an assault on the human command bunker. Intelligence had located General Rodriguez's headquarters, and the Zephyrian commander was determined to end human resistance by cutting off its head. What he found instead was a trap, 50 years in the making. General Rodriguez had indeed been in Geneva, but not hiding in a bunker. She was leading a defense that turned the entire city into a weapon. Every building was rigged with explosives. Every street was a potential kill zone. Every sewer tunnel and basement had been converted into firing positions connected by miles of underground passages. As Kethmore's forces advanced into the city, they found themselves fighting not just soldiers, but civilians who had been trained in guerrilla warfare since childhood. Doctors and teachers threw improvised grenades from hospital windows. Children led Zephyrian patrols into ambushes before disappearing into school buildings that had been converted into fortresses. "This is madness," Kethmore transmitted to his orbiting fleet as his forces took devastating casualties in brutal urban combat. They're using their own young as soldiers. They're sacrificing civilians for military objectives. They're turning their entire civilization into a weapon. But the moment that broke the Zephyrian war machine came when Kethmore himself was captured during a failed assault on the central command position. Instead of executing him, General Rodriguez did something that shattered every assumption the aliens had about human nature. She offered him medical treatment for his wounds and sat down to talk. "Why?" Kethmore asked, genuinely confused as human. Medics treated his injuries with the same care they gave their own wounded. "Why heal an enemy who has killed thousands of your people?" Rodriguez studied the alien commander with tired eyes. "Because that's what humans do. We fight like demons when we have to, but we don't lose our humanity in the process. You came here expecting to find primitives you could easily conquer. Instead, you found something your empire has never encountered before, a species that gets stronger when you try to break it." She gestured to a wall display showing reports from across Earth. Despite months of occupation, human resistance was growing stronger, not weaker. Every Zephyrian victory created new human tactics. Every alien adaptation was met with human counter-adaptation. "Your people have spent 50,000 years conquering species that gave up when the odds were against them," Rodriguez continued. "But humans have spent our entire history fighting impossible odds and winning anyway. This isn't just a war to us. It's what we are." The price of fear aboard. The Worldbreaker, Supreme Commander Vexthan, received war leader Kethmore's final transmission. With growing horror, the ground war had become a nightmare of attrition that was bleeding his forces dry. Worse, reports were coming in from across the galaxy that other species were watching the conflict with growing interest. The Kamal Republic has withdrawn from their tribute obligations, Navigator Kixara reported. The Scylan Confederacy is mobilizing their fleets. Intelligence suggests they're interpreting our difficulties here as a sign of weakness. Vexthan's skin cycled through colors rapidly, the sign of an emotional state he had never experienced before. Fear, not just of losing this war, but of what it meant for the empire he had spent his life building. For 50,000 years, Zephyrian dominance had been absolute because it appeared absolute. Species surrendered because they believed resistance was futile. But humans had proven that even primitives could make the mighty bleed. "Order all forces to withdraw to orbital positions," Vexithan commanded finally. Prepare for planetary bombardment. Sir? Kixara asked, confused. The bombardment will destroy the planet's value. We'll gain nothing but a dead world. Vexthan turned to face his navigator, and she saw something in his eyes that made her step back. Don't you understand? We can't let them win. If word spreads that a primitive species defeated the Zephyrian Empire, every world we've conquered will rise in rebellion. We'll lose everything. But even as he gave the order, Vexthan knew it was too late. The damage was already done. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had cowered before Zephyrian might for millennia were asking themselves a simple question. If humans could make the Empire bleed, what else was possible? The planet-killer weapons charged, preparing to turn Earth into a lifeless rock. But the idea of human resistance, the concept that any species could choose to fight rather than surrender, had already escaped into the galaxy. As General Rodriguez had predicted, humans had gotten stronger under pressure. And now, that strength was spreading to the stars. The legacy, the final transmission from Earth, came from Dr. James Park, broadcasting on all frequencies as the Zephyrian bombardment began. His message was simple but profound. To anyone listening across the galaxy, you don't have to kneel, you don't have to surrender, you don't have to accept that some species are born to rule while others are born to serve. Fight back, adapt. Survive. Make them pay for every world, every system, every star. Make them afraid. Supreme Commander Vexthan watched Earth die in nuclear fire, but he knew the victory was hollow. The humans were gone, but their lesson would live forever. Across the galaxy, rebellion was stirring. The age of easy conquest was over. The Zephyrian Empire had learned what fear meant, and the galaxy would never be the same. For the first time in 50,000 years, the apex predators realized they might not be alone at the top of the food chain. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the idea that had started with one small blue planet continued to spread. Never give up, never surrender, make them afraid.